Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, Algeria pulls its ambassador to France after Paris throws its support behind Morocco's stalled plan to establish limited autonomy for Western Sahara. Now, this move puts France at odds with Algiers, which backs the Polisario Front separatists who are demanding full independence. Also, the birr plummets as Ethiopia floats the currency to unlock a multi-billion-dollar loan deal from the IMF. The country's been chasing a difficult path to restructuring its debts as it tries to recover from the fallout of recent conflict. And a fresh start. Conservationists are hoping that the rim gazelle, native to North Africa, can recover from having its numbers decimated by hunters by introducing some of the animals to an uninhabited Libyan island. But first, France's relationship with Algeria has taken a blow over Paris's decision to back Morocco's position over the disputed territory of Western Sahara. Now, Algiers is withdrawing its ambassador to France following a letter sent by French President Emmanuel Macron to Rabat saying that its plan for the autonomy of Western Sahara is the only solution to a territorial dispute about the former Spanish colony. Now, it's controlled by Morocco, but Algeria backs the pro-independence Polisario Front that wants a complete breakaway. Brian Quinn talks us through.
A vast desert territory, for decades the subject of a seemingly intractable dispute. Now, France is weighing in on the future of Western Sahara. President Emmanuel Macron shifting the official French stance as he backs Morocco's plan for the region to remain autonomous under Moroccan sovereignty.
Our support for the autonomy plan proposed by Morocco in 2007 is clear and constant. For France, it now constitutes the only basis for achieving a just, lasting, and negotiated political solution.
Western Sahara sits underneath Morocco, which annexed it in 1975 as Spain relinquished colonial control. But an indigenous Sahrawi independence movement known as the Polisario Front sprung up. Its fierce resistance saw Rabat build a massive defensive wall in the 1980s, effectively dividing the region in two. Since a 1991 ceasefire, the conflict has remained frozen. The UN, which recognizes the Polisario Front as the Sahrawi people's legitimate representatives, has in the past called for a referendum on the territory's future, an idea that Morocco has rejected. Algeria, meanwhile, has backed the Polisario Front's claims, a conundrum for France, which has close ties to both Rabat and Algiers as their former colonial power. Macron's decision was welcomed by the Moroccan government and quickly denounced by Algeria's foreign ministry and the Polisario Front. It puts France alongside the US, Spain, and a number of African nations in backing Rabat, and comes as Paris seeks to deepen ties with Morocco, with its own influence waning on the African continent.
Now, things are moving for Ethiopia's finances. On Tuesday, the World Bank approved $1 billion in credit for Ethiopia, releasing the first lot of cash just a day after the IMF greenlit a $3.4 billion loan program for the country following the floating of its currency. Now, that means that instead of the government fixing the price of the birr, the currency's value is determined by commercial banks. The birr has been one of the region's weakest this year. I'm now joined by a regional economist who can tell us more about the impact of this move by the IMF. Thanks so much for joining us, Ken. Now, first of all, Ethiopia's economy, what state is it in and what difference will this IMF loan make?
Many thanks, Georgia. Ethiopia's economy has faced a series of shocks, both internally and from external forces. Internally, obviously, political instability has generated protest, ethnic tension, and that has made it very difficult to attract foreign direct investment and to attract businesses into Ethiopia. But also externally, if you look at some of the key exports that Ethiopia sells, that's coffee, textiles, oil seeds, all these have been affected by global commodity price swings, which sometimes create trade imbalances. And it is for this second reason that this package, the $3.4 billion package, has been introduced by the IMF to be able to help build those balance of payments scenarios.
And why was Addis's move to allow its currency to be traded on the open market so key to unlocking this deal? What does that change?
Well, if you look at Ethiopia's growth model, it has largely depended on the state public investment projects, really state-sponsored projects. Now that growth model has actually run its full course, and it's time now that Ethiopia encourages private sector investments. And the only way you'll attract FDI and private entrepreneurs to come into Ethiopia is when they do have a liberalized economy where they can come in, exit, they can enter and exit at any time of will. So that issue of repatriation of dollars to their home countries, access to foreign currency, those can only be achieved with a floating currency mechanism.
So, more widely, the IMF reckons that over half of low-income African countries are experiencing difficulties paying their debt. So what do you reckon needs to happen to find that balance between what African countries can do themselves to reduce their debt burden and what international lenders can do to better tailor mechanisms to Africa's needs and landscapes?
Well, many African countries, just like Ethiopia, have been dependent on government public sector investment. And as I say, that growth model has come to its logical conclusion. So what Africa badly needs is investments from the private sector. So entrepreneurs being given space to create, to innovate, to create jobs. Once you have investments, you're able to create jobs. And once people have jobs, they're able to contribute to the tax base through income tax and other measures. And governments will be able to raise enough revenue and reduce their debt burden. So it's really about a story of production, giving African countries the ability to produce. And this can only happen when African countries are open for business.
Thanks so much. Ken Gichinga, the chief economist at Mentoria Economics, talking us through some of the implications of the IMF's deal with Ethiopia. Now, Liberia's former finance minister has accused the government of making him the target of a witch hunt after he was made the subject of an arrest warrant. Samuel Tuer and several other top officials from the administration of ex-President George Weah have been indicted on corruption charges. Tuer is accused of being caught up in a €462 million graft scandal. Our West African correspondent, Justice Baidu, tells us more.
Mr. Tuer is being accused along with 4 other senior officials of the government of former President George Weah. They have been indicted on allegations that they stole from the public purse when they served from 2017 to January this year. His whereabouts are currently unknown, and he is on record to have said that this prosecution is a political witch hunt. He has previously been indicted by U.S. state authorities who said he took bribes and abused his office whilst he was in power. He has strongly rejected these allegations. This is the very first major corruption-related issue that is being handled in the court since new President Joseph Boakai took over. Mr. Boakai took over the reins of governance in Liberia in January, promising that he was going to be tough on a situation that has affected the growth of this country that is still trying to build back after years of civil war.
Justice Baidu there giving us a bit of context for why an arrest warrant was issued for former Liberian Finance Minister Samuel Tuer. Well, finally, an endangered species of gazelle is now being given a new home in Libya. Conservationists are hoping that numbers of the rim, which is native to North Africa, can recover if the animals are given some breathing room on an uninhabited island near Tunisia. Rims have been decimated by game hunters in the region. Laurent Berstecker tells us more.
Wrapped in sheets of white cloth, these young gazelles embark on a rare maritime journey towards the Libyan island of Farwa, a natural reserve where this endangered species could potentially thrive and find a new home.
Today, we released 8 gazelles, 1 male and 7 females. The idea came from the young people in our town.
Once released, the tiny antelopes stretch their slender legs before darting off into the arid landscape. The gazelle leptoceros, or rim gazelle, is known for its small size and pale sandy coat, which provides ideal camouflage from predators. But that hasn't stopped it from becoming almost extinct. Since 2016, it's classified as an endangered species, with only a few thousand remaining in the wild. Profiting from the political turmoil in Libya, poachers increasingly hunt the protected animal, most of the time for sport. This local NGO now hopes Farwa Island can provide the ideal refuge for the rim gazelle. A first group, introduced a few weeks earlier, has already adapted to its new environment.
After the first campaign to introduce a group of gazelles, we monitored them with binoculars and drones. Their conditions completely normal. There's enough food for them.
The NGO is also spearheading a reforestation campaign on Farwa and aims to turn the island into a protected sanctuary for all sorts of endangered species.
Best of luck to you, little Rim. That, though, is all we have time for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Till then, take care.